I want to take the view off so that I don't just see my face. Hello, brothers and sisters. Happy Sunday. Um, it is an honor to be here and to share a little bit of insight with hopes that it can help smooth out your path. Um, it's always an honor to be back at the Dallas Meditation Center, one of my spiritual homes. As always, I'd like to acknowledge Thich Nhat Hanh, my teacher, many of your teachers, and Brother Chi Sing, who I sat at his feet for many years. And so as a mindfulness practitioner, as a wellness practitioner, my tools were definitely sharpened the years I was present at the Dallas Meditation Center. So I'm forever grateful. And I'm so grateful to you, Bobby, and everyone, and for the invitation. So as many of you know, or may not know, the topic for today is it's time for beginner's mind, bowing to the tiny teacher within. Everyone take a breath with me and blow it out. I'm going to time myself so that I can not go over. I was inspired to talk about this because I am teaching mindfulness to students at a school here in South Central LA. And when we think of beginner's mind, at least when I think of beginner's mind, the first being I see is a child. Children are so curious. They're so open-hearted. They are so imaginative, and they are so present. And so I want to remind you all how important it is for you to tap into that tiny child that is still within you, and to see the ways in which you also can be more present, more open-hearted, more loving, more curious. And so I'd like to invite you all to hold up your hands if you're able. And I want you to really look at your hands, noticing the color, the shapes, the texture. Really, really look deeply at your nails. And I want you to feel it. Feel your own hands. Are they soft? They're a little rough. Are they cold, warm? Do you have any tingling sensations? Are you numb? Is there a scar there? If so, do you remember when you first got it? Do your hands remind you of someone else's? Maybe your mother's hands, or your grandmother's hands, or your father's hands. And I want you to just take a couple more seconds looking at your hands. Turn them over. Peek between your fingers. See if you can notice something that you've never seen before. Now take a breath with me, breathing in, breathing out. Now I want you to take those same hands and rub them together. Get some more heat in those hands. Notice the sounds that you hear. Now I want you to place those warm hands over your ears. Take another breath in. Breathe out. Okay, rub those hands together again. Make sure that you are smiling to your hands. Think of all the ways your hands helped you just in the last day. I'm not even going to talk about your whole life, but in the last day, how great have your hands been to you? Now I want you to place your hands over your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay. I see some of you held your hands over your eyes a little longer. Seems like you needed that. And take those same wonderful hands and rub them, rub them, rub them, rub them again. And now I want you to place your hands on your heart. What if this is the first time you've ever heard your heart beat like this? Notice the rhythm. Does the beat mirror something that you've heard recently? Are you familiar with this rhythm, this sound? Now take a deep breath in and blow it out. So the other day I brought a rock to one of my classes. I called it Rocky the Magic Rock. And I'm teaching kindergartners through third grade and their teachers mindfulness. And the kids were so incredible. They were looking at Rocky like it was this rock that I found outside, Rocky, the mindfulness rock star. They were looking at it like it was a piece of gold. And so when I asked the children, what did they see? I mean, they saw planets, they saw baby faces, they saw, oh my goodness. One child said, oh, this rock reminds me of my grandmother's skin. And another student was like, oh, you know, this rock reminds me of my favorite toy. And there was just so much freedom in noticing something that could be considered a simple thing. And I started thinking about how, as we get older, you know, we're adults, we have so much wisdom, we meditate frequently or not, how we lose that freedom, how we lose that excitement, that eagerness, that curiosity. But the beautiful thing about life and this practice is that at any moment, you can find it again. You can find that curiosity. You can find that imaginative spirit. And at every moment, you can always return to the present. And there are so many gifts there. And so one of my favorites, well, they're all my favorites, but one of my extra favorite students asked me, I brought the rock back a second week. And I wanted to see if they would notice something differently, if they would have noticed something different after the weekend. And one curious child raised their hand and said, is Rocky a boy or a girl? Again, this is that rock. And so, you know, I looked and I said, you know, that's such a great question. What do you want Rocky to be? If you want Rocky to be a boy, Rocky can be a boy. If you want Rocky to be a girl, Rocky can be a girl. And then another student came up and said, Miss Wilkerson, can Rocky have a baby? And I laughed because, you know, kids are kids. And I said, why did you ask that? I want to know. And he pulled out a little tiny rock that he found and he brought it to school and he wanted me to see this little baby rock, his new mindfulness rock. And he was like, could this be Rocky's child? And I said, absolutely. Rocky the rock star now has a baby and you have the baby. And so it's that sweetness, it's that innocence that I think if we collectively tap into, I think the planet, I think it could cool things off. And I'm sure many of you have seen the same news I've seen. You're living during these same times I'm living in. And frankly, it's tough. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of pain and suffering internally, domestically, internationally. And so bowing to the tiny teacher within, when I say that, it's another reminder to honor and listen to and respect and hold space to your inner child. I know that's what's helped me cope with a lot of this grown-up foolishness, a lot of this, adulting, tapping back into not only the children I see that I'm pouring into and who are pouring into me, but pouring into my little child who's still there. And I give her permission, and I invite you to do the same for your inner child, to see things with fresh eyes. And I know that's not always easy. In fact, it's easier said than done, But what would it look like if we just try to approach people and things with an openness that we haven't had in a while? And in order to do that, we're going to have to be a lot more courageous. You're going to have to tap into your inner courageous bear or your inner courageous, whatever animal totem you want to have. Because we've gotten so closed off. There's a lot of restrictive behavior. Politically, there's a lot of, things are being squashed. People are feeling really suppressed. So the idea of being open can be terrifying, When we think about the recent disaster where a child went to the wrong address and was shot, almost killed. And then other examples where people were killed for turning into the wrong driveway, the symbolism of like people not even wanting to open their door to someone in need, let alone open their heart. Because a lot of people are afraid. And so when we think about children and their sense of freedom, their sense of wonder, and their loving, loving, loving spirit, we can really learn a lot from them. And I think it will help to silence the ego. Because even now, I'm saying something very simple, but the ego can tell you, all sorts of things about what I'm saying or how I'm saying it. And all those things, our mind can just take us places that aren't always the healthiest for us. So in this moment, I want to invite you to take a breath, blow it out. And I want you to think about the tiny teacher that's within you. What do you think that teacher may need tomorrow? What does that teacher need today? How can that tiny teacher operate at its fullest? These are all questions you can ask yourself, that you should be asking yourself. I ask myself this often. And sometimes it's difficult to be present because our minds are all over the place. There's so much distraction, so much noise, where it can be difficult to focus on the task at hand. And so that's why I began with asking you to look at your hands, to look at your own hands and notice something different about them, because your hands are some of the closest things to you. And as you began to look at yourself with fresh eyes, look at yourself with love, look at yourself with curiosity and not get caught up in the ego and having to be an expert. Once you get even more comfortable looking at yourself like that, then I have found it's easier to extend that same grace, that same curiosity, that same love, that same sweetness to everyone else around you. And even that seems a little big, I always say, they say if you want to reach a nation, start from your corner. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. But if you want to really reach a nation, start from your house. Start with your family, start with those who are closest to you, because that is where, that's the real work. That will really strengthen you and make room for the lotus to bloom, to blossom. Another thing I want us to ask ourselves, how am I feeling in this moment? What do I need in this moment? And when you begin to ask yourself those questions and wait for the answer, because truthfully, when we focus on the present, it's not always sunshine and roses. We like to think so. No. So many things can come to the surface when you give them attention, when you're focused, when you give yourself the ability to be still and present with what is. A lot of things pop up. A lot of things that you may not want to see will pop up. But then that's where it goes back to looking at things with freshness, with fresh eyes, seeing it like it's the first time. Imagine if there's someone who you've had a lot of conflict with, and you meet them a certain day and they meet you, and you respond to them like, hey, not seeing what's right in front of you, but almost seeing, you're being present to it, but it's almost like you're looking deeper. You're looking through them. You're almost looking at their tiny teacher within. And I've had examples where I've had conflicts with other people or a certain person, and I was feeling a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. And then I had to really sit. My meditation, this is why this practice, this mindfulness journey, this practice is so incredible. It's life-changing, it's life-enhancing, and it takes work, you know? Every day I have to sit at my mat and look at myself deeply. Or I'm not even gonna say I have to. Every day I get to, I choose to. And so there was a particular person that I was feeling some friction with and from. And so I meditated, and then I remembered they may be going through something too. They have their own story. My perception of who they were even 30 minutes ago may have changed. And so when I met this particular person, I was able to meet them as they were in that moment. And even though they couldn't verbalize it, you know, I could see them soften right in front of me because I started to soften. And that's the beautiful thing about being present with someone, you know, and really, really seeing, seeing the moment for what it is, seeing the people for what they are. It allows for more goodness to come through, more loving kindness, more opportunities to witness beauty. And I say this, this is a practice. Some days we're better at it than others. Sometimes our life circumstances can present more challenges where you have to think about the future. You have to kind of sort through some things in the past, but that's the beautiful thing about our breath. And this moment, this sacred moment, this is really all we have. We return back to it. And during those moments, when you feel overwhelmed, go back to your hands. Go back to your own hands. And in those moments when you feel like life has worn you out so much that you don't even know what the tiny teacher looks like anymore. You know, you haven't heard from your inner child in forever. See those tiny hands when you look at your hands. You remember your little fingers? You remember when you first learned how to feed yourself? Let's take another deep breath in and blow it out. In closing, I want to read an excerpt from Chi Sing's book, 108 Reflections. And this is number 19, Love or Fear. Spiritual teachings say we live from a basis of love or a basis of fear. It is up to us to choose. When our basic fundamental approach to life is to close our heart, we fear everything. We close down, we shut out, we push away, we close up, and we live a fear-based life. Love is the core of who we are, and when we operate with love and open-heartedness, we are truly children of the universe. We are strong. Love approaches all things positive and negative with open-heartedness and the courage to be present. This is true of universal love, the kind of love we feel when there are no other humans around, nothing except the sky, the sun, the trees, and the flowers. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I want you to remember that it's always time for beginner's mind. And you can always begin again and again and again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash.